All right, we've got a 49ers update here on the Lombardi Lounge. Still starting the new podcast. Video is going to be back with our Brock Purdy film series, but the 49ers update is a significant one. Not entirely unexpected, but Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade. Mike Garofalo was the first to report this, and here are the words of his tweet. 49ers All-Pro wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade after an offseason of unsuccessful attempts to reach an extension. And these are Garofalo's words, and so don't take these too seriously right now because we have to parse them. I think it's really important to consider where they're coming from. But continuing on, he says, despite a recent meeting, the Niners haven't been willing to engage in negotiations since May, so Aiyuk has respectfully asked out. Okay, so first things first, timing is key here. Yesterday, I reported that the 49ers rookies are reporting to training camp today on July 16th. In 1 week, veterans, including Brandon Aiyuk, are going to be required to report. So Brandon Aiyuk is running out of time if he wants a new contract before this first soft deadline, before he starts losing money, because the 49ers can start fining him. In fact, they have to start fining him if he doesn't show up for training camp. The 49ers have the leverage here. So I say last-ditch effort for Aiyuk. I look at this as you're behind in a football game. Your receiver makes a catch near the pylon, but he only gets 1 foot in, but it looks like he might have gotten 2 feet in, but he probably didn't get 2 feet in. You have a challenge flag. You throw the challenge flag and you say, what the heck? It's a what the heck challenge. It probably won't work, but you can hope for a miracle. Why not? Aiyuk is clearly not winning in these negotiations with the 49ers. The 49ers have a price, reportedly around $26 million per year. I don't know what the fully guaranteed amount is. Brandon Aiyuk wants more. We go back to the Justin Jefferson deal, which was signed in early June that blew everybody else's away. We said that wouldn't be good for Aiyuk and the 49ers seeing eye to eye because it naturally would make receivers want a lot more money, and the 49ers are on a tight budget. So if the gap in between side A and side B is as big as it seems to have been over the course of the past several months, over the course of this offseason, there's not much hope in that gap getting smaller, and there's definitely not much hope in the 49ers raising their offer because they already have Brandon Aiyuk under contract in 2024. They're doing him a favor by extending him if they do extend him. So what Aiyuk can do is he can try to rock the boat, the last gasp attempt, the last ditch effort to rock the boat before training camp, and it would make sense that it would come now. Deebo Samuel also requested a trade 2 years ago. He did it a lot sooner. Deebo Samuel requested the trade. What was it back? I would say probably in April. Yeah, it was probably early April of 2022. They were still working on a contract over the course of that entire offseason, and they still reached a deal a couple days into 2022 training camp. Aiyuk, up until now, had refrained from requesting a trade. He had appeared at the 49ers facility. He's been working out there every day. I think there was a 2-week stretch here recently. He might still be working out at the facility as we speak, despite this trade request, because again, it's hard for this to have teeth if the 49ers don't want to trade him. These players can't just pick where they want to go. And that's where the big operative question comes in. How could the 49ers possibly stand to benefit from a trade? Before the draft, maybe you could pick up a first-round pick, theoretically. Players weren't going for those high rates anymore. That seemed to be a price of yesteryear. But theoretically, you can pick up draft picks, valuable capital that you could turn around to improve your team. But the 49ers in win-now mode right now, trading Brandon Aiyuk, you would have to find some kind of player-for-player compensation that it just would not, it's really hard to reach in the NFL. And we've got a further update here from Adam Schefter now. And this update is other teams have reached out and spoken to San Francisco and have been told that the 49ers have no intention of trading disgruntled wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. who officially has requested a trade. 49ers open training camp next week. So, guys, exactly what I was just saying. 49ers don't have any possible benefit to trading Brandon Aiyuk. That is what Adam Schefter just reported as I was talking about it. I'll put it up here on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. There you go. Again, from Adam Schefter, other teams that have reached out and spoken to San Francisco have been told that the 49ers have no intention of trading Brandon Aiyuk, who officially has requested a trade. The 49ers open camp next week, a week from now. There's nothing to benefit here. Brandon Aiyuk is, and his representation here, Ryan Williams, this is simply a last-ditch effort to see if they can rock the boat. The 49ers have the high ground in negotiations. And, you know, there is one aspect of this that could make the 49ers a little uncomfortable and maybe sweeten their offer just a tad to Brandon Aiyuk, and that is they don't want to deal with the drama of a training camp holdout. They don't want to deal with, you know, the lost time for Brandon Aiyuk, because lost time last year for Nick Bosa and lost time 2 years ago for Deebo Samuel over the course of the offseason, even though he showed up a couple days into camp. That ended up adversely affecting at least the starts of their respective seasons. So if the 49ers just don't want to go through that again, if they feel so much pressure to win the Super Bowl this year and get off the hot start, if they really want Brandon Aiyuk in that building from next Tuesday when veterans report, maybe, just maybe, they're willing to sweeten their offer a little bit. And this maneuver from Brandon Aiyuk, this request of a trade, maybe that gets the 49ers to say, okay, fine, we don't want to deal with this. You've created enough drama. We'll give you a little bit more money or some more guarantees. But the truth of the matter is that it seems that the two sides are so far apart that just a little sweetener, I mean, yeah, sure, maybe Aiyuk is just doing this for the little sweetener, but it seems that a little sweetener is not going to come close to bridging the gap between the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk. And at the end of the day, it's the 49ers who have the high ground. It's the 49ers who already have Brandon Aiyuk under contract. And if that is the case, he's going to have to come to them. Remember, this is about paying Aiyuk a year early. He's already under contract for $14.1 million in 2024. So if he wants the larger check, the security that goes beyond 2024, the big signing bonus, he can wait until after 2024 when he's scheduled for free agency, but he also runs the risk of the 49ers slapping the franchise tag on him. There's more team control in that situation. It's not set up to be friendly to these players. Or he can meet the team where they're at. And the reason the 49ers are where they're at is because they've got a tight salary cap situation. They've paid more A-list players than any other regime in the league ever since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch showed up in 2017. So last year, Nick Bosa held out throughout the entirety of training camp, and the 49ers finally had to fold because Nick Bosa was Nick Bosa, and he was everything to their defense. They couldn't enter that 2023 season without Nick Bosa. I think the 49ers can enter the 2024 season without Brandon Aiyuk, especially since they have Ricky Pearsall on board. Does that make them worse? Of course it does. They're not as good of a team without Brandon Aiyuk in uniform with them. So they're incentivized on some level to have Brandon Aiyuk in the fold. But I think he's more incentivized than the 49ers are to resolve this, because he starts losing money if he's not around next week. And then if this extends into the regular season, well, then you start losing game checks. And that's 1/17 of 14.1 million with each passing week. And you'd have to report. There is a firm deadline for Brandon Aiyuk to report so he doesn't lose an accrued season. And that is what, week 8, week 9. So how long is he willing to have this go? How long is he willing to play this game of chicken with the 49ers? And who's going to blink first? And I think the 49ers, with their high ground, they absolutely can wait for Aiyuk to blink first. Ricky Pearsall has insulated the 49ers in that regard. You're not as good if you don't have Aiyuk on the field, but it's really hard to make the case that the 49ers cannot stay afloat without him. This is the most loaded offense that they've ever had under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And with Aiyuk and Pearsall and Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and all those players aboard. Oh, that's an impressive group for San Francisco. You take one of those names out of it, it's not like it's going to stop floating. It's not like it's going to stop it's not going to stop its ability to produce, probably even at a prolific level. Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. So they want Aiyuk in the building as soon as possible, and I think it behooves him to be in the building as soon as possible as well. But really, the timing is absolutely key here. This comes a week before 49ers veterans report to training camp, and I view this as Brandon Aiyuk's last gasp since the 49ers have all the leverage. Speaking of Aiyuk, we have some social media video of Brandon Aiyuk working out. There he is out on the field. I can't really tell where that is. I know he likes to do some workouts. He might be in the Bay Area, actually, if he's been working out the 49ers facility, because it is overcast and that can't happen in the Bay Area. Josina Anderson has a tweet for us. I'm told within the last couple of weeks, the Patriots reached out to the 49ers inquiring about Brandon Aiyuk, and we're told the talented wide receiver was not being traded at this time, per source. That is from Josina Anderson. So there you have it. The 49ers logic tells us that they cannot possibly stand to benefit from a trade draft pick wise. They might be able to benefit from a player for player swap or multiple players coming over, an offensive lineman coming over, but who's actually willing to execute such a trade? That's really, really hard to do in the NFL. You don't see those happen often. So in this case, I think Brandon Aiyuk and his representation, Ryan Williams, I think that they see the writing on the wall. The 49ers hold all the cards. 49ers want him to play for them at their rate in 2024. They're willing to extend Brandon Aiyuk into the future if they could secure a contract that allows them to be sustainable, because they have a lot of other guys to pay. And they have that contract extended to Brandon Aiyuk. Maybe the last time that they upped their offer was back in May, and it is a take it or leave it situation. If you want to get paid early, you have to make compromises. That's what the 49ers are telling Brandon Aiyuk, and they've got quite a bit of leverage, quite a bit of high ground. Remember, there's a lot of value in playing for the most talented team in football. That is the favorite to win all 17 of its games. That's a favorite to win this Super Bowl. Instead of going to a place like New England, where, you know, if the Patriots, if they're as bad as people think they're going to be this year, you lose a little bit of brand value if you're Brandon Aiyuk. You gain brand value by playing for a Super Bowl, by playing next to Christian McCaffrey, next to Brock Purdy. You gain career longevity by playing with an accurate quarterback like Brock Purdy, who's set all kinds of records over his first couple of years in the NFL. That's really important. And we heard Brandon Aiyuk talk about Purdy a couple weeks ago when he was on that podcast with Ryan Clark, and he had nice things to say about Brock Purdy. It's undeniable. These two have really good chemistry. That's why the 49ers want to keep Brandon Aiyuk around. He does so much so well, not just from a receiving standpoint, from a blocking standpoint as well. He's a key part of this offense, and there absolutely is no incentive for the 49ers competing for a Super Bowl a week before the start of training camp. There is no incentive for the 49ers to let him go and make their team worse. They would truly have to be blown away by an offer. And again, I'm not really sure that anybody's in position to blow the 49ers away. That's why I put the question, how could the 49ers possibly stand to benefit from a trade? Let's open this up to a Q&A. Same as the Deebo Samuel situation as far as a trade request, except for a few months later, a week before the start of training camp. Hey, at least we have something to talk about here until next Tuesday when the 49ers report. Anyway, I'm ready for the Q&A as we watch some of these Brandon Aiyuk highlights. Those of you joining on the podcast, welcome. The Q&A is going through YouTube, so I'll answer the questions on YouTube. On the podcast, obviously, this posts a little bit later. Ask some good questions. That's what Eric Gomes says. We'll be on here for a little while. Will Aiyuk take this opportunity to show the league what he's worth, or will he hold out? I think he's going to play. I think it'd be foolish for Brandon Aiyuk to hold out. I think the 49ers know that. I think they can have a motivated wide receiver, and this is contractual posturing right now. That's at the end of the day, I think that's the situation that we face. There's no reason to freak out about this. It's business. We saw it with Deebo Samuel, and the timing here is key. Nigel Crane asks, doesn't all this make Aiyuk look bad? Well, it's business, and looking good or looking bad, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you think that this makes Aiyuk look bad, then yeah, he looks bad. If you think that this doesn't make Aiyuk look bad, then that's your opinion. That's a subjective question. I just look at this as business dynamics, business 101. Brandon Aiyuk and his camp want one end of the contractual spectrum. The 49ers are at the other. To reach an agreement, you have to find a spot in the middle, and they've been unable to bridge that gap. So it incentivizes Brandon Aiyuk to rock the boat. What's the worst case scenario? Says David Sir. That's another subjective question. Right now you have a contract negotiation and Aiyuk is under contract. The worst case scenario would be for the 49ers to trade Brandon Aiyuk away for peanuts when they don't have to, because he's already under contract and they have leverage in this situation. But, a lot of people are going to make more out of this than there really is. It's a trade request that the 49ers do not have to honor, and they're not obligated to honor it, and they're not incentivized to honor it. Rick says that the Minnesota Vikings screwed over the 49ers with the huge contract to Justin Jefferson. Hey, partly, yes. But at the end of the day, Brandon Aiyuk has to know that despite what Justin Jefferson signed for, the 49ers still have leverage in the proceedings with him. So he's going to have to budge, and maybe he's planning to budge. But why budge until deadline pressure hits? Like, before deadline pressure doesn't make much sense. The first soft deadline, it's not a hard deadline, but at least the soft deadline is next Tuesday. That's when 49ers veterans report. So that's coming up in a week. Before then, why not try to rock the boat? And I think that's what happened here with Brandon Aiyuk and this trade request. Do these negotiations just come down to guaranteed money? I think in essence, yes. In essence, this is a guaranteed money kind of situation, just because APY can be so easily fudged. Now, for some players, APY is important. It's a what we call a vanity number. But I mean, if it's that important to a player, again, a team can just up some non-guaranteed money at the end of the deal and say, fine, take this. I think that players are smarter, and agents like the high APY because they could use it as an advertisement to grab new clients. But at the end of the day, you're going to have that solid amount of guaranteed money in a contract to move the needle with somebody who's actually going to put pen to paper. I want to open up the 49ers 2024 salary cap sheet for you guys as we continue answering some of these questions. So as you know, I keep track of the 49ers cap situation. This is their 2024 salary cap report. On a 53-man cap, $23.7 million of room for the 49ers, and they could actually lower that amount with an extension for Brandon Aiyuk, because what you would do is you would push money into the future. But if you move to 2025, where Aiyuk currently is not on the books, you've got to be careful, because a lot of bills are coming due, including Brock Purdy's new contract for the 49ers. So there are a lot of moving pieces. It's like a game of Tetris, and there's a reason why the 49ers want to stay true to their high ground with Brock Purdy, with Brandon Aiyuk, and with Brock Purdy too. There are going to be negotiations next year. And you want to stay true to the high ground, because It is all this one contract is all part of a larger mosaic. You cannot sacrifice the rest of the piece of art for one portion of it. I think the Minnesota Vikings might have done that with the Justin Jefferson deal, which was so absurdly large, so much bigger than anything else. What was it? 88 million of fully guaranteed money. Number two is 52.5 million of fully guaranteed money for Tyreek Hill. It was a 69% jump. Does Aiyuk want something in between those numbers? Does he want something around Tyreek Hill's number? The 49ers just need to have their number for Brandon Aiyuk that can fit within this larger structure, and they need to stick to it. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. They're sticking to it. They're not yielding to these trade requests. They don't stand to benefit from a trade realistically. And Brandon Aiyuk has every right to rock the boat before he faces the deadline pressure of fines during training camp. But again, the 49ers are not obligated to respond to him. The Vikings can do that because they aren't paying quarterbacks that much. Well, neither are the 49ers. Also, this is from Gabriel Pereira. I know those of you listening on the podcast, I could probably help you because you can't see what's up on the screen. Also, when Justin Jefferson takes over, or when JJ takes over, when JJ McCarthy takes over, he will still be controlled for 4+ years. Oh, sure, but overpaying is still overpaying. And Minnesota bid against themselves for Justin Jefferson. They expanded that market massively. Nobody's denying that he's the top receiver in football, but the math is clear with Justin Jefferson. The Vikings are paying fewer A-list players than the 49ers. So yeah, they could have a little bit more room, but the 49ers are in a situation that I call a good problem to have. You've got so many A-list players and you're giving out so much money across the board to these players through these mega deals that you've got to be careful, especially with more mega deals pending. Brock Purdy's another A-lister. You've got to be careful. You have to make sure that nothing is as bloated as Justin Jefferson's contract with the Minnesota Vikings. All right, we're still here. More questions. Let's go. If Brandon Aiyuk holds out into the regular season and loses paychecks, does the money go back to the salary cap? That's from Dave Zobel Jr. The answer to his question is yes. If Aiyuk holds out into the regular season and he doesn't get paid on a week-by-week basis, so a 17th of his contract would not be paid each week, the 49ers would get a refund against next season's salary cap to account for that. Could Aiyuk sit out all the games? Asks Sean Trevino. Yes, I mean, he can. You're free to do that, but then he would not have an accrued contract year, so he'd be in the same spot as he is right now, so that would not benefit him, and he would be $14 million poorer than he would be if he played all of the games on his existing contract. So as you can see, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't have a lot of good options. Nothing that Brandon Aiyuk can do in terms of a holdout. Any path that you take, you follow that to its conclusion, it doesn't end at a good spot for Brandon Aiyuk. He's not incentivized to sit out, let rust accumulate, give up a $14 million, even more, give up the money that you're turning down from the 49ers right now, and then not gain an accrued contract year. So the 49ers, because of that, they hold leverage in this situation. Yeah, he can miss training camp. Now, I think the 49ers, because Nick Bosa had so much leverage last year being the key defender on the team. I mean, the 49ers dropped to number 10 in defense last year, even with Bosa on the team. Imagine how bad it would have been without Nick Bosa. So, I mean, Nick Bosa held the high ground last year. Brandon Aiyuk doesn't hold the high ground this year. The dynamic is completely different on the 49ers offense. So Aiyuk can miss training camp, but the 49ers are not incentivized to forgive his fines. They could even warn him right now that, no, we're not going to forgive your fines. And two, I think, remember that this is a contract year for Brandon Aiyuk until it isn't. Until he signs a new contract, this is his final year of the rookie deal. And if it's a contract year, you better be ready to perform at a high level so that you can secure the contract theoretically in 2025. So if this is a contract year, as it is, as we speak, before he signs anything, it probably is a good thing to be at training camp, especially if the team that you're playing for just drafted a receiver in the first round and Ricky Pearsall, who's talented enough to develop his way into earning a significant load of the snaps, especially if your team is as loaded as the 49ers, where there is competition for reps, competition for targets. In a contract year, you want as many targets as possible. You want to load up that stat line so that you get paid as much money as possible. So it is counterintuitive for somebody like Brandon Aiyuk to miss training camp in a contract year. That hurts him. You could see, I'm just listing reason after reason after reason that the 49ers have the leverage in this situation. They have the high ground here. And the only thing that I could think of that's not great for the 49ers is, yeah, if Brandon Aiyuk does do what's not great for him and hold out, then it's not good for the 49ers as a team, because Ayuk's not out there at training camp and you want that chemistry and you don't want the distraction. So yeah, that makes the 49ers mildly uncomfortable at most. So maybe, just maybe, that causes them to be a little bit more generous in negotiations to prevent that discomfort from happening. But there's so much more to lose here on Brandon Aiyuk's side than there is on the 49ers side. It's just the way that it's set up in the National Football League. These contracts favor the teams, especially the situation that Brandon Aiyuk is in right now. Our quick hit up on The Athletic is ready, by the way. We'll put that up on the screen. There you go. Brandon Aiyuk requests trade amid contract squabble, per source. So I wrote a lot of what I'm talking about up there. You can go ahead and subscribe to The Athletic and check it out. In fact, I should probably tweet this right now. Those of you who are aboard, I think that a lot of you probably might not be aware yet, but the Lombardi Lounge 49ers podcast has launched. So the YouTube channel will continue, but we are now on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. So you can listen while you're driving. So you don't have to watch video while you're driving, because that would be unsafe. We don't want you to do that. There was a lot of demand for a varied method of distribution of the show. And this show is now indeed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So we're doing a couple days of just audio only here on the YouTube channel to bring attention to that. And I'm getting the camera and the studio set up and everything too for the season. 49ers report to training camp next week. So be sure to subscribe to those podcasts. Check out the episodes there. Consume them that way. And then the YouTube is going to be fully running with video. We're going to have a Brock Purdy film breakdown. So also make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel while you are here. You can follow me on Twitter as well. Here's The Athletic, but the Twitter is at Lombardi himself. I'm going to answer a couple more questions. We're coming up on a half hour here on the show. 49ers Q&A on the Lombardi Lounge. When is training camp? Well, the rookies are reporting today. The veterans reporting next week, Tuesday, July 23rd. We'll talk to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch a week from now. And then on Wednesday, the 24th, 49ers will take the field for their first practice of training camp. Do I think that Brandon Aiyuk will sign before training camp? Not necessarily. I mean, he could bet on himself. He could show up and play this year on the fifth-year option if he really thinks the 49ers are lowballing him. Now, the risk of that is the franchise tag. That being said, it's hard to see the 49ers wanting to apply and being able to apply that inflexible franchise tag next year with the Purdy money. With the fact that, you know, they have drafted Ricky Pearsall to theoretically replace Brandon Aiyuk. So The advantageous rate for the 49ers on Aiyuk is the 1 year, 14.1 million that they see right now. Beyond that, I don't know. But anyway, if Aiyuk sees this as a 1 year, $14 million thing with a chance to hit open free agency next offseason, and maybe that's, some of the discussions with the 49ers. Maybe they are talking about the potential of them using the franchise tag in the future. But if Aiyuk sees that and he calculates, well, I could sign at a relative discount for the long term now, or I can wait, use the 14.1 million to hold me over, and then hit unrestricted free agency in 2024 if the 40 or 25 if the 49ers allow it, that could be the path that he takes, and he doesn't sign and he still plays for the 49ers this year. Again, this is another example of how the 49ers have all the cards, because even Aiyuk playing on the 5th-year option as a motivated player on a contract year, not a bad thing for the 49ers. So the 49ers update here on the Lombardi Lounge is that Brandon Aiyuk has requested a trade. Also, the interesting line here, this is obviously coming from Aiyuk's camp via Mike Garofalo, but the second line, despite a recent meeting, the Niners haven't been willing to engage in negotiations since May, so Aiyuk has respectfully asked out. To me, they've literally met a couple weeks ago, so the Niners haven't been willing to engage in negotiations line is a little sketchy to me. It reminds me of Aiyuk's TikTok where he said that they told me they don't want me. I think that what this means is they haven't been willing to engage Aiyuk's contract request. Aiyuk has a number that the 49ers haven't been willing to meet, and it's far enough apart from the 49ers number that Aiyuk and his camp are speaking as if the 49ers haven't been willing to engage at all, which is okay, but it's not. So it just makes this line a little fuzzy for me. It doesn't make me, I just don't think that it fully encapsulates the situation. Basically, we've heard 49ers at 26 million per year. Aiyuk probably a lot closer to 28, 29, maybe 30. I don't know. Average per year. Again, that's fluff. The fully guaranteed money is what matters. Maybe Aiyuk wants 50 of the fully guaranteed money and the 49ers are only at 42. I'm speculating. The bottom line is that they're not at the same spot. They're not close to the same spot. So Aiyuk has requested a trade. Timing is key here. It has come a week before the start of training camp. I look at it as a last-ditch effort, a last gasp from Brandon Aiyuk since the 49ers have all the leverage. But the 49ers are not incentivized to trade him. And according to Adam Schefter, other teams have reached out and the 49ers have told them that they have no intention of trading Brandon Aiyuk. Makes way too little sense. So the question moving forward is, how long is Aiyuk willing to hold out? It is as simple as that. How long does he want to make himself uncomfortable, the 49ers uncomfortable, and the 49ers hold the high ground here in essentially every matter? All right, that's it. Everybody go sub to the podcast. This is your 49ers update. It's significant. It's not earth-shattering news. It was expected. It is a negotiating strategy from Brandon Aiyuk. We'll talk to you all soon.